Hello and welcome to Truth versus Hype. Now, one would have assumed that given the unemployment problem, the budget, especially an election time budget, would tackle the jobs question in India. But it didn't. Or it did in passing, with the finance minister making somewhat vague references to job seekers becoming job creators and so on. The only specific reference linked to job creation by this government was to the MUDRA scheme, which oversees lending to small businesses.
We have harnessed Yuva Shakti through self-employment schemes, including MUDRA, Startup India and Stand Up India. Under MUDRA Yojana, 15.56 crore loans have been disbursed, amounting to 7,23,000 crore rupees.
Now, one has to admire the government's dogged insistence on invoking the MUDRA scheme to bolster its job creation record, when there's been no credible evidence in the public domain to suggest that this is the case. In July 2017, on this very show, I'd asked the MUDRA CEO about job creation. This was his response. Sir, how many jobs has MUDRA created?
See, that is still, we are yet to make an assessment on that. In fact, I understand that Niti Aayog is making an effort to do that.
So we don't have a number right now?
We don't have a number right now.
And on budget day, about a year later, I asked the Niti Aayog chief the same question. One of the things that you were supposed to look at was whether MUDRA was creating jobs. And again, MUDRA came up in the budget today. Do we know how many jobs MUDRA has created?
We don't have a firm number, but what the finance minister omitted from his speech was to say that of the 15 crore loans that have been given,
yes,
4.4 or 4.6 crore have been given to new borrowers.
Okay, need more evidence of the confusion over job creation by MUDRA? My colleague Shruti Menon just this week received an RTI or a reply to an RTI sheet filed on job creation under MUDRA. She joins me on the show. Shruti, what did the RTI say or not say?
Vasu, we had just asked 3 questions. First was how many jobs were created. Second, we sought the details of the beneficiaries. And third, we asked about first-time borrowers and their details. While we did not get any proper answers in the RTI to any of the questions, what was poignant was that the first question has not even been addressed. As I can show you, the first response in the RTI starts from point number 2. So basically it means that the ministry itself has no answers on how many jobs have been created through the MUDRA scheme. And the first question was completely ignored and has been directly, the RTI response has gone directly to the response number 2. Even that doesn't give us proper answers. So this means that even the ministry does not have any answers on how many jobs they have been able to create through the scheme in 3 years.
Okay. So, I mean, either they don't have an answer or they don't want to give you an answer, because we've seen many ways in which RTIs obfuscate giving responses, but this is fairly innovative, that you actually just skip the question entirely and just jump to another question. But Shruti, you've also done some number crunching on MUDRA lending as to whether that has any evidence of job creation. Now, what did you find?
Now, we looked at how many loans were given in each of the categories. Now, MUDRA has 3 categories of loans. Shishu, which is up to 50,000, Kishore between 50,000 and 5 lakhs, and Tarun between 5 lakh and 10 lakh. Now, what we found was that in each of these years, since the inception of the scheme, that is 2015, the loans given under the Shishu category were the highest, touching an average of 90%. So, if 90% of these loans that were given were below 50,000, then the question really is, how many jobs would these loans really create?
Okay, now, look, all of this is not surprising, given that MUDRA is not, as the government would like to spin it, some sort of new game-changing initiative. As we've reported on this very show, it's simply rebranding existing lending by banks and microfinance institutions to small businesses. What MUDRA has done is to classify and categorize such lending and simply called it the PM MUDRA Yojana. MUDRA also offers, by the way, a refinance option. In other words, it lends to banks and MFIs who in turn extend the small loans. So the question really to ask is, has the rebranding and the refinance option led to any surge in small lending? Shruti, what did you find?
Now, since MUDRA started, what we found was that lending by banks and microfinance institutions have been steadily rising at 22% in 2015, 24% in 2016 and 67% in 2017. Now, those numbers look really good, but before MUDRA, such lending by microfinance institutions were already growing at about 60%. So, lending by banks to MFIs were essentially already on the rise. And lending by banks also steadily rising. They first rose by 36% in 2016 to 28% in 2017. But before that, in the year MUDRA started, lending by banks fell by 40% in 2015. And the pre-MUDRA years, the data that we found from RBI was of outstanding loans under 10 lakh rupees, which gives an estimate of such kind of lending. And it shows that it dropped in 2013 and then rose to 50% in 2014. And like I said, dropped again to by 40% in 2015.
So, okay, just put that graphic, just hold that graphic on the screen for a second to explain to our viewers what we're trying to say here. Those yellow bars are the lending during the MUDRA years, up 28%, up 36%. Before that, it fell by 40%. The grey bars are the lending by banks pre the MUDRA years. And essentially, it's trying to tell you is that there's no big difference. The lending pattern largely remains the same. Sorry, Shruti, go ahead.
Right, and moreover, even as lending grows, these numbers are great numbers, right? Lending has seen a growth even during MUDRA years. The MUDRA component of these loans is very minuscule. In fact, the MUDRA component in the microfinance lending dropped in 2017 to 0.4% from 1.3% in 2015-16. And same is the case with banks. The MUDRA component of lending by banks ranged between 1 and 3% during these 3 years, 2015 to 2018.
All right, okay. So basically, if MUDRA had been such a game changer for small lending, then why has it not had any significant impact in its contribution to these huge loans? It's only contributing between 1 and 3% of all bank and microfinance lending to small businesses. Thanks very much indeed, Shruti. Let's go to panel. We have with us Lalita Kumaramangalam, who's Director, India Foundation, member of the BJP. We have Pooja Mehra, a senior journalist who covers the economy here in the studio with us. Alok Mishra, who's the Professor, Public Policy and Governance at the Management Development Institute here in Gurgaon, who's familiar with this area, and Dr. Gaurav Vallabh, spokesperson of the Congress. Alok Mishra, if I can just start by asking you that based on whatever we could find in the public domain, we couldn't find any evidence, as we just saw, that MUDRA has led to some huge job surge or has been some sort of game changer when it comes to lending to small businesses, to micro loans. This seems to simply be a rebranding of an ongoing existing exercise.
So, Vasu, I would like to answer it in two phases.
Right.
See, you have to see two parts to it. One is the data part. The first is the data part. While the data may not show a surge in incremental lending,
right,
which is true, because lending to micro and small enterprises will take time, but even in the data, I see one significant trend which Shruti has missed to indicate, okay, and that is very clearly shown that the share of micro and small lending in total bank credit, which was dipping to negative, has started going a little bit up. But I understand your point, the point which you are making, that there has not been a significant incremental flow of credit to micro and small enterprises, but the trend has been reversed, that I would definitely say. And the other point, the going away from the data part of it, yeah, I would like to focus more on the ecosystem part of it. It has definitely created some sort of a sensitivity among the bankers, among the lenders, that right, micro and small enterprises are the need of the hour. We need to lend to them, otherwise the inclusive growth story of India will not be complete.
I mean, at the end of the day, just to correct you on that, when you said that there was a negative trend which has become positive, it was positive before MUDRA and negative, yes, before MUDRA. It's also negative after MUDRA and positive after MUDRA. So the trend is exactly the same. There's no change in the trend. So, and when you talk of sensitivity, you may be right. Those are intangibles which we can't calculate. Yeah. But when it comes to hard data, there's nothing to suggest that there's been any great surge of either lending, and certainly, Pooja, as far as job creation is concerned, I mean, we've seen both, you know, the Niti Aayog chief.
Srinivasan, let me just
Yes.
Let me just put one small point to it.
Yeah.
You said about the data part of it. See, it is how you look at the data. See, when you look at MUDRA, MUDRA is loans to micro and small enterprises up to a certain limit, that is 10 lakhs.
Right.
But overall category of micro and small loans doesn't stop only at 10 lakhs, that is the MUDRA limit. So when I was referring to the data set, I was looking at the entire micro and small segment lending by banks, not limiting per se to MUDRA only.
Okay, fine. You know, on the jobs front, so you've got now the Niti Aayog VC says we don't know how many jobs created. Last year when we asked, the year before, when we asked the MUDRA CEO, he said, I don't know how many jobs created. The RTI, as I said, is a unique RTI because it just skips the question altogether.
So that raises the question, on what basis is the finance minister making such a statement in parliament?
Right.
Can he not be questioned? How did he create this, you know, notion that MUDRA is creating jobs? What did he base this information on that he is giving to the nation and to parliament? Number one.
Yes.
Number two, so, you know, so all kinds of questions that raises. Number two, MUDRA loans will get, and jobs created from MUDRA loans will get covered in the household survey of the NSSO, which has just been scooped by the Business Standard. And, you know, there is a correlation. You see,
and which the government has just sort of tried to wash its hands off.
They may have, but you can see the correlation. In 2017, the loans dip.
Yes.
And in 2017, the demonetization year, the financial year, that data shows a 45-year high in unemployment.
Right.
So there is correlation. And these jobs, if at all any jobs, if at all any jobs are getting created, they do get covered in that particular annual survey.
Right. Interesting. Lalita Kumar Mangalam.
MUDRA is nothing, you know, over and above the unemployment survey.
Good evening.
Lalita Kumar Mangalam, this is something that, you know, we keep running into again and again. The government keeps making claims with nothing to back it up, and MUDRA is a case in point. We've debunked this MUDRA jobs revolution so many times, but your government keeps repeating it.
Good evening, Vasu. I must appreciate your efforts also to keep coming back to the same thing to run down the government. But let me make
we're not running down the government, we are fact-checking claims.
Clear.
If a claim is made, we have to fact-check it.
MUDRA was initially introduced by the government so that people who couldn't afford to take loans or weren't given loans because they didn't have collateral to offer, specifically women from various sections of society, but the very poor women, regardless of caste or creed, etc., were able to access loans. Now, there's been a lot of skepticism about the scheme for one reason, because everywhere when you talk to a banker, they say that when you give loans without collateral, they'll never be given back. But I digress, but I think it's very unfair to women, because the entire self-help group and microcredit movement has proved that women are better repayers of loans than men. But let's not go into that. That's a different debate for a different day.
Right.
When it comes to job creation, in India, we have a mindset. If you go and ask a small or a micro enterprise owner, he will say, "Nahi, mera job to nahi hai, mera business hai." Now, this is an automatic thing which I don't know how it gets reflected in the data, because I am not an expert on data collection. But the government has again and again said that there is a lot of data that has not yet been verified. And it takes years to actually come up with solid, verifiable data on job creation.
Okay, just 2 points on that. Number one,
I mean, you can't expect.
Okay, 2 points. Let me respond.
Sorry,
I'm
not able to hear because everybody keeps interrupting.
Okay, just I'm speaking at the moment. I'm just making 2 points in response to what you said. The first is when you said that MUDRA was started to ensure that loans are given to small businesses, entrepreneurs, and women. So just to correct you, as we've just pointed out, what all MUDRA is doing is simply. Look, can I just finish? Can I just finish? All MUDRA is doing is simply rebranding existing lending by banks and microfinance institutions to small businesses. This was already going on. It's like a river is flowing, and you just put a sign on it and say Pradhan Mantri River Flowing Yojana, and you take credit for that. There's nothing that MUDRA has done to value add to this other than brand it as MUDRA. Number one. Number two, when you talk about the fact that there's not enough credible data about job creation under MUDRA, then why does the government go on citing MUDRA as an example of its success in job creation. That's the point where I'm trying to raise.
All right. Can I reply to the two of these questions?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, the first question I'd like to say that I think all of us are very, I don't know what the term is in Hindi, but in Tamil we call it kandavatti. That is when people try and go take loans. For example, women flower sellers. I am quoting so many women's cases examples because I've worked with these poor women across the board in Tamil Nadu, Andhra, etc. and I know the cases. These are facts, right? When they go to ask for loans, they go to money lenders who charge an absurdly enormous, a killing rate of interest.
That's
often running into hundreds of percentage. I mean, really, 100% is nothing. These are the people who probably have taken these loans, and they are normally self-employed people. They switch perhaps from people who are killing them with the rates of interest that are charged to the MUDRA loans, right? And in that sense, there are many more people by word of mouth, etc. This is how this small sector operates. It's not through fancy advertisements and
But I'm saying something
arguments
else.
like
I'm saying
ours
this was already going on
and other in comfortable TV studios.
Sorry, I'm saying this was already going on. This was not a new. This is not something which this government has started.
It is going on, yes.
But the fact predated the government.
No. The fact is that what the government has done is try to increase the number of these micro entrepreneurs. I wouldn't even call them small, micro entrepreneurs, because they will then have less money as interest to return to the people from whom they borrowed. In this case, banks, etc.
Okay, let me just, I
agree that the data is not yet solidly available for employment that has been generated by this.
Right.
But it's not easy to gather such data in just a couple of years. It will take at least 2-3 years more to actually show results which will be reflected in data.
Okay, Gaurav, want to come
there is enough word of mouth evidence, and people who work in the grassroots know this.
Okay, all right. Gaurav, yes, quickly.
I had 3 points.
No, make 2 points.
Why, Vasu? You gave enough time to everyone.
Yes.
So there was one gentleman expert, he mentioned that before the share was this and now share got increased. I had that data. In 2011, 12.4% of total credit was to this type of loans. Today in financial year 17, it is 12.55%. That's the difference. So that is the answer to that gentleman.
What is the source of your data?
This is Reserve Bank of India's report, RBI's report,
right.
And that got published in Mint also. One by one. Second point, what ma'am is saying, that she is giving me the benefit of formalization and non-formalization. I had 2 questions for the ma'am and to the government. When they can count the LED bulbs, why they can't count the number of jobs which were created?
No,
and second point, then Vasu, you react. Second point, 90% of MUDRA loans, the average size is 21,000. And the finance minister is saying job seekers to job givers in 21,000 rupees, Vasu. I am asking the expert also that in 21,000 rupees in India, which job you can create. I want to do a case study on that because that's a publishable item and the entire world wants to know. No, 90% average size is 23,000. 23,000.
The average may be 20, but
the average is 23,000. So in that average 23,000,
how many
which
jobs
job
can
you can create? I just want to do case study for my academic interest. Can anyone show me that?
Okay, one at a time. Professor,
I want to add to that.
Yes.
Is this the aspirational India that we talk about? That a business set up with a loan of an average of even let's say 50,000 rupees.
Yeah.
What kind of salary will it pay, even if it employs somebody as a helper in this particular business? What kind of returns is this business going to generate?
Right.
Is this what the aspiration of the scores of educated youngsters in India is today?
Okay.
When we talk about jobs, what are the kind of jobs that people want?
Also,
is it this kind of jobs?
Also, Alok Mishra, if I can ask you that this business of MUDRA, again coming back to the idea of MUDRA claiming credit for all this, the MUDRA refinancing, as I mentioned, has remained fixed at between 1 and 3% of total lending. So, I mean, it's great that microfinance institutions and banks are lending to the smaller sector, but how does the MUDRA scheme get to take credit for it? That's what I'm not able to understand.
Yeah. Srinivasan, give me a little time. 2-3 points. I think the gentleman said about some data point. See, he compared the 2011 data with the current data. But I am talking about the dip which has taken in 2014-15. That dip is being corrected a little bit. See, as you slice the data, there will be different interpretations.
I would like to react to this.
But there is an uptake. Second point was about the 90% of MUDRA loans going for small category, that is the SISU category. That is correct, but that is number of loan accounts. In terms of loan amounts sanctioned and disbursed, that falls to 45%. And third, your point about rebranding aspect of it, yes, the category up to 10 lakh loan has been rebranded as MUDRA loans,
right?
And MUDRA refinance would not have much of a significant part in that. Definitely, we have to admit that.
Yes.
It is the banks and MFIs which are doing that, but it has definitely created a sensitive atmosphere, and an ecosystem is being created where banks and MFIs were already doing so.
Good, that's
but banks
good.
are being asked to lend to it proactively.
If it's created a sensitivity,
just a second.
If it's created a very short time, if it's created a sensitivity,
let me also point it out.
But I just want to keep correct. You keep saying that the negative was corrected. No, hold on, because you've repeated this. You keep saying the negative was corrected post MUDRA, the negative of 2013. It was minus 15 2013. It became plus 15 2014. Before MUDRA came in, fell again in 2015, minus 50, and then grew again to 36% the next year. So I'm just repeating. The correction happened pre-MUDRA, not because of MUDRA.
No, Vasu, I am not sure which data set you are looking at. But
we're looking at RBI data.
Also tell you a bit of.
Sir, they are looking at RBI data and data from MUDRA.
There are so many data sets.
No, they aren't.
There is only one report.
RBI is the gold.
No other report.
Sir, RBI is the gold standard. I mean, you're an academic, so you would know that. Yes, very quickly.
Can I Vasu?
No, RBI is the
because
gold,
the same report is
RBI
in front
is the
of me.
gold standard.
No. Okay, we have to leave it there.
Okay,
we have to leave it there. I'm told that we're out of time. Are we out of time?
Okay, but the other point.
Oh, we have 30 seconds more. Lalita Kumaramangalam, do you want to come in quickly?
Point on it.
Yeah, can I just one point?
Yes.
I just wanted to tell Gaurav Bhai that it's easy for us to collect LED, for us to count LED bulbs because it's distributed by the government. But when it comes to microcredit that is given to people who set up self-appointment schemes, it's very, very difficult to actually count the numbers for any government or any organization.
Then why, ma'am, you are claiming that 4 crore people got a job here? And I am surprised, Vasu. Finance Minister standing in Parliament and saying jobs were created in Uber and Ola. I don't know what is it Uber and Ola economics.
No, don't do it.
I'm surprised.
Okay, that's unfortunate.
Uber and Ola economics.
No, Gaurav, that's not fair.
Vasu, I never interrupted. But when she is telling that we can count the LED bulbs, but we can't count jobs.
Gaurav. Okay, I'm sorry it had to end like this, but we've ended on a note of chaos. But that's all the time we have. We will track the story on NDTV. Thank you so much for joining us. That's it. Truth versus Hype. Good night.